Hello and welcome to 365 Days Towards Racial Change. My name is Tomlin Nyback. We're here talking about Black issues in America. Look at it from all aspects: history, economics, politics, international policy, financial awareness. We're going to talk about leadership another day or so. Stay tuned. No, we don't want to leave any rocks unturned. Turned. We want to look under and inside every nook and cranny that we can think of about, you know, what what is the Black experience? What are some realities, some truisms? We draw a lot from the past. We can, from looking at the past, we can kind of paint uh, or create a good foundation. We can have make better informed decisions. We can self-determine ourselves better from looking at the past. And I get some pushback from, I guess, Black folks. I can't see the faces of some of the anonymous people that comment on the videos, but I get a lot of pushback. What I say, guessing from Black folks, because there's a lot of Black folks thinks we're doing fine. We are progressing well. We are. Um, Moving within the American system just as freely and equally as whites, Hispanics, Asians, Arabs, Hmong, everybody. And I don't know. I'm not. I'm not convinced. My experience does not bear that. So anyway, we just go along and we try to put our case out there. Everybody's got a voice nowadays. Hell, why not me as well? One among billions, no problem. Two big issues that are on my heart, although a lot of things we talk about are beyond the scope, but two of my main concerns are for the Black mind. Is it still impressed, compelled by slavery? Did America's centuries of this institution that robbed people of self-determination and their will become an ingrained um, way of thinking? Has a new, a kind of new race being created from Black people, um, and how they interact and move within the American system? I say it many times. I sat in white classrooms, went to predominantly white schools, but I'm having a different experience than my white contemporaries by far. And the flip side of the same coin is for the white mind. Expectations of entitlement, privilege, favor in the system. Look, America, created by European whites, for European whites, administered by European whites. I wonder what the result is going to be, um, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I wonder. So that we look at that. Now, my second big concern is for financial literacy. We can educate ourselves in a whole lot of ways, but if we don't have the means to prime the system, engage the system, uh, even to adjust its trajectory in any way, which is America runs on finances, then we're sunk. And if our financial literacy, is limited to bank accounts and savings and renting all the time and squandering our disposable income with people who are just fine leaving us right where we're at, people who are not interested uh, in equal exchange of commerce. I think it's time maybe to revive that conversation on the doctrine of unequal exchange. We've talked about that in the past. You can look that up. Um, but financial literacy. We need to think about what's interest rates, what's Federal Reserve, international banking, principal versus interest, cash flow over uh, payment of principal. In my developing financial literacy and philosophy and theory. Oh, so much, but being aware of that. Oh, altruism, giving, the part of that. I'm making that a part of my financial literacy. I'm not, and I'm making a concerted effort. I'm going to give it some time and see what it means. Hopefully I can give you a good report uh, in 6, 7 months. I'm going to give it some time. Uh, I, I appear not to be in a position to be um, financially altruistic, but too many of my mentors, even a young black man with his clothing line, talks about it. So I'm missing out on something. So it's one of those things where I've got to do the experiment so that if it fails or I feel that I didn't uh, benefit from it, then I have it in the checkbox in the column, and we'll look at some other ways in finding out how money works. So that those are the things. Financial literacy. I want black people to become financially literate. Very important. It's kind of the foundational aspect. Then we can worship the God, how we want to worship God, and get things within our means, have wisdom, uh, financial wisdom, exercise that in the world. But if we're struggling to make ends meet, there goes our energy and our time. I am greatly influenced, and we are informed by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. Remember, August 10th, 2019, he's proposing a Heritage Festival Day. Just trying to get some black celebration going in America. I hope that kicks off for him very well, us very well. I've read 3 of his works. First work, Black History Reader, and he's written much more. He's all over YouTube, easy to find. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. Behind me, you'll see the hashtag #US2 symbol. You'll find black women supporting one another, conversing there. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, or Black Facebook experience. This is the World Wide Web. Look around, find your community, your flavor. If you can't, do what I did, start your own. We also refer to Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work from the mid 1800s, Uncle Tom's Cabin. That's a fictional account of slave life in America, masters' lives in America. And from there, although it's a fictional account, those stories in there may have some factual basis. We got to go to the end of the text to find out some more about that. I've read the book, so I'm kind of going through a process here. This is the only linear thing we really do here at Racial Change, even though it's haphazard, but we'll take a chapter every once in a while. This is a very dense chapter. I wanted to give it a lot of attention here. Some very important things developed. So it's actually, I've split it into 4 pieces, 4 parts. and today is part 3, day 174, 365 Days Towards Racial Change, chapter 18, Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, Uncle Tom's Cabin, part 3. Ophelia, she's going through, well, actually, Harriet Beecher Stowe's using Ophelia as like your cell phone, right? When you go places, new places, taking pictures, maybe having some video of interviews, talking to people, things like that. So Miss Ophelia is like Harriet Beecher Stowe's cell phone in the slave life, in the master's life, there in the deep South, New Orleans. And as she's coming up against a lot of ideologies, things about the realities about the slave trade, about the mental, spiritual condition of the slaves. She's Up to this point, she's not really exposed to some of the physical um, depravity of the slave institution. I'm not sure. We got to keep going in the book. I'm not sure how close she gets to that. Because white folks with their means have there's some white folks that want to have a sense of order. Now, Ophelia's from the North, where she has rested on order. Her whole life has been categorized, organized, and all that. So she's bringing this onto this southern plantation. And so we've left. She had to run in with the head cook and the nerve center of any home, the kitchen, right? You might say it's the living room and it's centered around the TV. Well, that's leisure and stuff like that. Maybe I would say argue that it's the nerve centers, maybe the kitchen, because there's the resources for sustenance and everything. There's a whole lot of you get archetypes of life in the kitchen, right? I learned the difference between cheese and raw potatoes in the kitchen, and I started making my preferences, on along that line. The kitchen, you know, sweet stuff, tasty, savory stuff, you know, what's going to stimulate the palate. I think that's the nerve center of the home. Ophelia's getting exposed to the realities of Southern life. Um, into this, into her disillusionment. She's frustrated. St. Clair doesn't give a damn. The slaves have no sense of self apart from the slave master, and so she's processing a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. She may be wondering who the slave is. Is she the slave? You know, she's trying to hold on to herself, and bringing the house into a kind of ordered condition is her way of um, holding on to reality, having a sense of self in the world. Me, I find purpose in doing this project, but also I'm a musician, so that's revived suddenly in my life. I thought I let it go, but that's revived, and some other interests and things. So I have a sense of self, some ownership, as I can control, macro and micro manage some areas of my life, and that brings me some peace and comfort, knowing that I control that. That's ordered in my way. That's big for Ophelia. Enters another character. We're going to find there's plenty of characters abound. It's a thick text. Harriet Beecher Stowe is very creative. Enter a slave named Prue. Prue, she's described a lot of African mannerisms. She holds baskets of wares on her head. like the women of Africa, when she comes to a place where she's going to spend some time conversing and doing some commerce. We'll talk about that in a second. She squats on the ground. You know, us Americans, we take a seat somewhere or a stand. But now she has entered the kitchen, about to do some commerce, and she squats on the ground. Um, the slaves. This is Ophelia's first time meeting her. The house slaves are very judgmental of Prue. Prue has a drinking problem. She steals money from her masters, and she's bearing some heavy issues. And it's appropriate in the text that you know she's presented, and we learn right off the bat she's a person carrying a load. She's carrying a load, and the load is on her head. I wonder how the story is going to unfold with this illustration. I think Harriet Beecher Stowe is being very purposeful in introducing Prue in this way. So we get a lesson of alcohol. Alcohol, we see it prominent. It's a concern of slave masters. They hope the slave is not given to alcohol. Thank God we have Tom. Tom's a teetotaler. He's sober. But it is a real issue and condition because Prue is probably would classify as alcoholic, term not developed yet in Harriet Beecher Stowe's work, but all the signs are there for alcoholism in Prue's life, especially in the face of stealing and compromised work, lack of trust, punishable by uh, brutal physical treatment. There's some alcoholic tendencies there. Consequences don't matter to the alcoholic. You know, they come in, but they're fuzzy and they're easily justified away. Take a drink. That's the life of the alcoholic. I know out of my own experience. Um, so that I want to just pause. Black people should not be doing drugs or alcohol. We need to be present always at all times. You know, even if you're functional, more power to you. But is there are we born with a marijuana deficiency, nicotine deficiency, alcohol deficiency? Are these vitamins that we're taking when we're smoking and drinking and whatnot? God forbid it's hard drugs like I used to be into. From this mistrust, she sells twice baked bread and stuff. She goes around to different plantations and sells this. Her home, if you call it her plantation, makes these and all that. But because she can't be trusted, and how she's very adroit at getting into the till and stuff to get whatever her fix for some alcohol, a ticket coupon system has been developed in the community where the masters will get together, uh, buy a block of tickets or whatever, and now as she goes around, she has tickets. You can't buy alcohol with these private notes that are being exchanged among the slave masters. Her access to capital is very limited, but she's very creative. The alcoholic is extremely creative, and she finds a way. But it's the best system going right now uh, to help try to keep her sober and keep her from stealing. So they're talking, they're introducing tickets, there's conversation about Prue and Dinah, Mr. Adolph, the St. Clair house slaves are, being very judgmental towards her. As Miss Ophelia gets a sense of the story, she even chimes in a little here and there. And Prue is just embattled on all sides. Um, she deals with it. She handles it, and goes on about her business. This shows demonstrates the normalcy of Prue's experience. She is, she's carrying a load. We get a sense she's got something on her mind, on her heart. But these interactions are normal. She retorts and spits back her feelings as well, and this is a normal exchange. Though she's not in a hurry to get out. They're just having their standard conversation when she's exchanging these goods in the home. The text describes, she drinks to forget her misery, but they also describe, her exposed areas on her back. It's a hot south. We're guessing it's, um, they're doing agricultural things. It's not the middle of winter, which down there it's not as much brutal winter as maybe wet, but so she's got some exposed skin. So back of her arms, maybe back of her legs, back of her neck, any exposed areas like that probably show welts, scarring, lashing. There may even be festering wounds healing from a recent beating, on Prue. So that's described, alluded to in the text. Very important to think about that. Her skin is torn. And she's getting her mind and her spirit is torn by her contemporaries of the same color. Par for the course for the white woman from up north. They don't they're okay with that. That's the white woman from up north, Miss Ophelia. Of course, we have to give our allegiance to any white person. And as we're going through this institutionalized slavery and racism um, here in America. Dr. Anderson, as far as Dinah, Mr. Adolph, and some of the other slaves there in the kitchen, Dr. Anderson talks about the black overclass versus underclass or challenged blacks in their experience, and how you know these black overclass would be Dinah and Mr. Adolph, being judgmental and being insensitive, also being obstructive to the betterment of another black person in the similar condition. Now, this could be two things. Uh, a result of meritorious manumission. Yeah, remember that there's all these aspects of meritorious manumission, but the purpose was to keep blacks divided. So this spirit of division among blacks, I think, is playing out here in this dynamic between Dinah and Mr. Adolph and Prue's condition. You know, um, Second, the idea that this black overclass is obstructive and whatnot to other blacks getting better or needing help or needing some compassion. I know I spent years in one of America's inner cities, and I went down. It was kind of trying to address some drug and alcohol issues, and I went down there to get better. But while I was there, I felt I was better than those around me. And when I left that space and that time, I was probably one of the worst off creatures on the streets at that time. I was undone. I obviously had to be humbled in my attitude and in my experience with black folks, black people in general. That was uh, you know, my hubris and arrogance. I had much to learn there in my early 20s and mid 20s and whatnot. Yeah, yeah. So that's my confession. You're not listening to a guy that's made a whole lot of proper decisions over the course of his life. Not not by far. We can glean from our experience, learn from them, accept the humility, and move on. All right. Now Tom comes along. Prue's done with her abuse and stuff. She's going on whatever kind of circuit she needs to make. Enters Tom, and Tom is going to be evangelical, empathetic, bringing the gospel, talking about Jesus and his hope for Prue. He wants Prue to get away from alcohol, for one thing. Tom recognizes, he noticed people given the drink are headed for trouble. I think we can say that consistently about Tom, honestly. Now, and Prue has, just got no self worth. She's this broken woman. I wonder what her problem. Like, I don't want to say it like that. What's your problem, Prue? Get it together. That's the improper thing. Something's weighing heavily on Prue, and her, like probably many slaves at the time, are just exasperated and lost. They wouldn't care if they fell in the fire, fell off a cliff, you know, starved to death. Just it's sad, just existing in the world. You know, so far we don't see a Prue motivated for anything much beyond getting some alcohol. The brightest space in most of her days is abuse from Dinah and Mr. Adolf, the house slaves. Tom is a new acquaintance. This is a new relationship and all that. So it's not like she's been um, proselytized by Tom over a period of time. This is a rare occurrence and meeting. But her normalcy, her par for the course in life is to be physically whipped, trying to find drink, being abused verbally, emotionally, mentally by her contemporaries of the same skin color. You know, she's not much about Jesus and God. Where's all powerful when so many suffer, so many are at the hands of what seems to be absolute power, apathy, abuse, uh, devastating control in the land. We're at the bottom of the time here. We want to figure out, I'm going to dissect what's going on with Prue. I think it's very important to see how she's going to tell us how she came to this point. She's going to tell her story. So we're going to come back tomorrow and just let her tell it right from her own lips. I'm not even going to elaborate. But we got to wait till tomorrow because we're out of time here. I'm Tomlin's Nyback, day 174, out of the way. of 365 Days Towards Racial Change. Come back tomorrow for Prue's story.